Yo, I'm Brendan, and today we're going to talk about Webull's new feature, which is called Plans. I've been using it now for a couple of days, and I have some thoughts about it. I think, at least in theory, what Webull has done is give us something that solves a real need in the marketplace, because in my experience, medium-term goals are the absolute worst to plan and track for, and what this feature does is do that for you. All we have to do is pick from a few different goals they have set up for us, or we can create a custom one. We put in the amount of time and money it's going to take to get to the goal, and it does the rest for us. And this should be a huge value add. It should make our lives so much better, because with every other financial goal that I've ever set, it's one of two things. Either you have a very simple kind of bucket system with your finance app, and that's where you can just put money into a bucket. All that's really doing for us is naming that particular account a different name. Oh yeah, that's the one where I'm saving up to buy a new set of axes. Oh, that's the one where I'm saving up to buy a new race car. But that system isn't smart at all, because it's not helping you to know how much you need to save, how often you need to save it. It's just a bucket with a name on it. And then the flip side of that is to use a spreadsheet and build everything yourself and have all kinds of math and calculations and graphs and pretty things in there, but you have to manually update it, and you have to choose how to set it all up, how often everything happens, how much your return is, all these different things you've got to build into it yourself. And so you have a spreadsheet on one side, which is very smart, but requires everything of you. And then you have a dumb bucket on the other side that requires nothing of you, but also isn't smart. And so what Webull has done is present us with these plans. And the beautiful thing about them, in theory, is that they meet right in the middle of those two things. They're as easy as the bucket with a name on it, but they do enough work for us that we don't have to do the spreadsheet. And so on first glance, I was really excited to see this, because I thought, finally, we can have an easy to use tool that accomplishes some of these bigger purposes for us. Maybe we want to plan for retirement, save for a down payment, save for a race car. All of that becomes so much easier, or at least it should. Let's go through one of these goals now, and I'll show you what I mean. So I'm seeing this view within Webull Lite, but you can access it within regular Webull too. And if you missed the video about Webull Lite, then I'll link it at the end of this one so you can see what that's all about. It's sort of a simplified version of Webull. Whenever you're in the home screen to get to the plans, all you do is click on this third icon on the bottom that looks like kind of a bullseye with an arrow stuck in the middle of it. And it says, "Welcome to Planning Center. Start your planning journey here." It gives us some pre-suggested categories to choose from. We can build wealth. We can save for emergencies, plan for retirement, save for a down payment on a house, save for education expenses, i.e. super expensive college, or save for anything else. I want to go through 3 different examples with you to show you what it's like to use this, and then I'll give you my final thoughts at the end, because I think there's still some untapped potential built into this service that Webull could very easily change and make it useful, but they haven't done that just yet. First off, I want to save for anything else. I want to save for a race car, and that's our first problem right there. Apparently we can't use emojis in the name. Webull, that's -1. Fine, we'll just call it race car. We'll get started. And this interface is very easy. It's lovely. I love it. What's your target amount of money? A really great race car is probably 30 grand, so we'll do that. What's my target date? How about sometime around when I turn 40? So that's about 3 years from now. We've picked our target date. Then it asks us, how much have we saved towards our goal so far? I'll tell you right now, not a whole lot. We'll say $1,000. And then how much do I plan to save each month? I mean, ideally, not a whole lot, maybe $400. And they'll hit start calculation and see what the result is. Ah, interesting. So my target amount is right there at about 30 grand. But my predicted amount based on what I'm saving is only 16.5. I'm going to get a much slower or jankier race car for 16.5. And then this interesting little levitating Webull robot person with a caution symbol on their face says, the gap between your plan and your goal is too large. We're going to have a shortfall of 13 grand. Please make some revisions based on the following options. Okay. Then they give us quick changes for the goal match. I love that they do this. I think sometimes with money, we get caught up into this kind of pigeonholed mindset. We think we only have one option. There's a lot of different ways to get to the outcome that we want, and so I love that they're giving you 3 easy ways. I can either keep my goal the way it is, but increase my monthly savings. I can lower my goal, or I can extend the target date out. So based on whatever your fixed circumstances are in your life, you can pick what works for you. So for now, I'll lower my target amount. I'll just say, you know what? I'm going to buy a cheaper race car because I'm not willing to save anymore, and I'm not willing to wait till I'm older than 40 to buy the thing. So we'll just get a cheaper car. We'll hit let's do this. There we go. Great job. Your goal is officially set. And then of course, because it's Webull, because they're a brokerage, they want to give us an option to have a specialized account for this. And it says down here at the bottom, note, only one taxable advisor account can be linked to one non-retirement goal. So let's see what happens whenever I open a new account. So what they're going to do is open us a smart advisor account. So if I understand this correctly, it's basically Webull's version of a taxable brokerage account that's led by a robo advisor. They're going to have an automated investing plan for us based on the inputs that we give it. We say, we're really for risk or really against risk. Build us a plan that will help us accomplish our goal, basically. And right now, I'm not technically saving for a race car, and so I'm not going to go ahead with that new goal. But you can see what that would look like if you wanted to have a dedicated account set up for this dedicated goal, whatever it is for you. Could be a big vacation, could be a custom gold-plated axe. That would be very nice. But that way you have everything that's built into one account for you, and it's all set up and tracked in this one service through Plans. So I think that's very, very cool. You can see there at the very top, our custom goal would be the race car, target date, target amount, boom, ready to go. Now, the first thing I noticed with this that I wish was different is that you couldn't just use an existing Webull account to allocate towards this goal. Like, obviously, I'm using Webull. I have money invested. There's a taxable brokerage account here. Why can I not use that account towards this goal? It only makes sense to me that I'd be able to do that, but let's keep opening a couple more plans and see what else we can find. Some of you that have paid attention already know that there's something there that I'm going to have a problem with that doesn't make sense to me. And so you're probably screaming at your keyboard right now, Brendan, it's that thing right there. You overlooked it. No, I haven't overlooked it. We're just going to talk about it here in a minute. Now let's save for emergencies because most people don't have an emergency fund really set up. So let's see what this would look like to do this with Webull. If you ask Dave Ramsey, your first baby step is to save $1,000 for emergencies, which is way better than saving nothing. But in 2024 and beyond, we need to have more money saved than that. So I'll say we need to have at least $3,000 saved just as a bare minimum baseline. Make sure we don't have to get in tons of credit card debt and that kind of things just in case the poop hits the fan. So we're going to save $3,000, let's say by the end of this year, because we're in a rush. And let's say I have $500 saved towards the goal so far. Then you notice it's pre-populated the amount that I need to save to make these kind of connections happen. I didn't put in $308.52. It put that in there for me because it knows how much I'm going to have to save. Let's just be a little feisty and tell it we're only going to save $300 a month and start calculation. Technically, we have a little shortfall. There's a small gap of $68 between our plan and our goal, but it's not a huge deal. And I love the little chart showing you the planned versus actual amounts. I love the quick changes that you can opt into if you want to increase the monthly deposit, if you want to lower your target, all those things. In this case, let's extend the target date out one more month. It's not going to be a big deal to wait one more month to do it. Let's do this. And there we go. Now we have that plan set up. It's so simple. It's so easy. It's so illustrative, and you don't have to go back and forth between a spreadsheet or an investment calculator or type anything in yourself. All you're doing is saying, I want this money by this date. Tell me the answer, Webull. Again, it's strange that I can't use one of the existing Webull accounts towards this goal. They want me to open a new account. So it kind of feels like this whole thing is a ploy for us to open their kind of Robo advisor Webull account. I wish it wasn't that way. Starting to feel that way, like it's some kind of sales funnel just to shove me down into that Robo advisor account, whatever they're calling that thing. But let's do one more example with the retirement account, and I'll finish picking it apart and give you my real thoughts. So retirement is a unique goal because there's a lot more interpolation here to figure out based on your age, when you want to retire, how much money you'll need, all that jazz. So let's see how much of that legwork Webull does for us here. My current age is 37. I mean, ideally I would retire at 50. So let's just pick that. Let's pick the ideal scenario here. Then what's my desired monthly spend amount during retirement? Well, first off, my question here is, are we talking about today's dollars or are we talking about dollars in the future? Because as inflation changes our spending power, the dollar amount that I might pick today wouldn't be sufficient for the future. So I'm curious to know if Webull's going to do that math for me or if I need to do that math now. Let's click on this little I symbol and see what it says. Enter your estimated monthly retirement expenses here. If you're unsure, you can have an estimate based on the lifestyle you hope to have. If you plan to maintain, improve, or reduce your current lifestyle, you can convert 80%, 70%, or 60% of your current annual income respectively and divide by 12 months. So it sounds like what they're talking about is today's dollars, which I think makes sense. For a tool like this, they need to do that digestive work for us and say, you put in what you know, which is how much you're planning to spend as of today, and then we will figure out what that means in future dollars. They're not telling us they're going to do that, but I'm hoping they're going to do that for us here. I mean, ideally, if we're talking about an idealized scenario, I want to spend $10,000 a month. It's more than we need, but that's what I'm going to put in. How much have I saved towards my retirement goal so far? I'm not going to reveal that because this is the internet and our personal finances remain personal, but I'll just pick 500 grand as a nice round number. And then for curiosity's sake, let's see what this little I symbol says right there in the middle. How much do you have saved? This is the total of all your retirement savings, 401k, IRA, plus any other savings earmarked for retirement. That makes sense. I like that. It's very clear. How much do I plan to save each month? And then here's where we bump into our first kind of awkward limit with Webull because they've set up some guardrails here that I don't think they needed to set up. It says enter the monthly investment amount you anticipate in order to achieve this goal. Because there is an annual contribution limit for IRA accounts, the total monthly investment amount multiplied by 12 must not exceed the specified contribution limit. So they're already telling us right now that the amounts that we can save for retirement are going to be limited to an IRA, and that's nonsensical. That's not the real world. We don't have to only limit our savings to an IRA. Obviously, they can't factor in the amount we're going to save with a 401k because we don't have those accounts linked here. A 401k is totally separate to whatever account we have with Webull. So I understand that they would have that separate, but there's no reason why we couldn't be saving for retirement with a taxable brokerage account. And when Webull has both an IRA and a taxable brokerage account available, what they should be doing here is figuring out how much we need to save and then automatically directing that money, like you're directing traffic into the respective account. Okay, maybe I need to save more than I can in just one IRA. Maybe suggest that I open a spouse IRA, or maybe suggest that any overage that I want to invest over and above the contribution limit for the IRA goes into a taxable brokerage account. You've got both of them in here, guys. Just divert that flow of water for me. It seems very strange that they wouldn't do that. So let's say I want to save $1,200 a month. I'm intentionally picking an amount that's over contribution limit for an IRA just to see what it says. I'm going to poke the bear a little bit. Confirm. Boom. Please note your monthly savings amount surpassed the annual contribution limit for IRAs, $583 a month. Come on, Webull. You're smart enough to put this whole thing together. Why can we not figure out how to use multiple different accounts here to accomplish this goal? I want to be able to put in $1,200 and have it say, okay, we've automatically maxed out your IRA. That's a plan. Let's open up a Webull IRA for you. Also, we want to open up a Webull Robo Advisor taxable brokerage account for the rest of that money in there. So out of the $1,200, $583 per month is going to go to the IRA. The other $617 or whatever that math is going to go into the taxable brokerage account. That way you're going to meet your savings goals. Just so you know, we just have to split it into two different kinds of accounts. Great, grand, wonderful. Take the wheel for me. If you're going to take the wheel for me and create this beautiful calculated savings plan, then do that account separation for me too. That's a value add for me because you made it easy. It's a value add for Webull because now I have multiple accounts that are all tied to this one goal. You've simplified this for me. Make it simple all the way through, but they don't. It's very silly. Come on, Webull. Now let's click into the advanced section and see what other details we can see here. All right, we've got life expectancy, inflation, and rate of return. And the first thing I notice is a life expectancy that's actually longer than the average American male life expectancy, but we'll leave it in there because I'm optimistic. Hopefully I'll be healthy enough to do that. And then it's so strange here that both inflation and rate of return are grayed out, which means we can't change them. We can't type anything in here. It tells us what inflation is, but it doesn't say we can't change that, which honestly, I'm okay with not changing inflation because that's something that's not in our control anyway. I mean, we can have an opinion about it, but it doesn't mean we can actually change that. The silly thing is we can't change the rate of return. And if you've been watching up to this point, you're probably going, Brendan, on the previous two goals too, you overlooked the fact that Webull is assuming you're only getting a 3% rate of return. Webull, what the heck is this? This is so crazy. We utilized a straight line assumption with a 3% annual rate of return for the calculator. However, please note the rate of return can fluctuate. Disclaimer, disclaimer, legal, legal. What is this? I don't like this for two reasons. The first one is that most investing calculators or plans or things like this allow you to choose your own rate of return. And I could even understand putting guardrails up. I would say, hey guys, plan on between 2 and 10%. Give me a range to plan on because then I can see what the difference is in those returns. I can see, oh, maybe I'll need to invest a different way to get this high enough return and achieve my goal. It's so strange that they give you no choice in the matter. But the reason too I have a problem with this is because Webull could also use this to parlay right perfectly into their Robo Advisor account. Like, why not start with the goal in mind and say, okay, Brendan, that's fine and dandy that you want to have a 10% return, but what that means is our Robo Advisor account is going to have to invest at the maximum risk level for you. Do you like that? Yes or no? Well, I've already set up that I want this goal to happen in this time frame. I want to have this amount of money. So to me, that makes logical sense that I would have to accept that level of risk if I want all those other things to happen. And if I'm okay with the risk, then by all means do it. But it just feels like such a natural segue that they've dropped the ball on here to say, well, your rate of return is just fixed. It's just 3%. So I feel like we've been completely let down by this savings plan now because it seems like such a wonderful thing to have this set up and automated for us. It's very simple for me to fill in these few things that I can know myself. When I realize I've set up the wrong metric here, how many years do I have until retirement? I put in 50. I really needed to put in 13. And so what we have here is a failed retirement plan tool from Webull because they've taken something that starts off easy and definable for most people. What's your age? When you're going to retire? How much do you have saved? How much do you want to have saved? How much do you want to spend in retirement? All of that seems very clear. And then they're dropping the ball on limiting us to an IRA. They're dropping the ball on not giving us a variable rate of return in terms of our own risk level that we can opt into through Webull. And so now I know for a fact that I can't use this tool. If I have $1,200 that I want to save for retirement, I know I can't do it here because they're going to limit me to $583. I know that I want to invest the money and be riskier than what a typical 3% rate of return would be expected to do. And so I know I shouldn't use this because it's not going to give me an accurate calculation. It's just become this completely inept, unusable tool because of these limitations they put in here, and it's not necessary. Let's hit start calculation anyway and just see what it shows us. Well, it's saying we're going to have a giant gap in between what we've saved and what we need. Part of that's because you're limiting us to 3% returns. It says I'm going to have a $6 million shortfall. And then as far as my quick changes that it tees up for me, the changes that I can make to my own savings plan to hopefully reach that goal, all I have to do is work for 43 more years and I'll get there. Wow. Thanks, Webull. It's interesting that they don't tell us how they got to that number, for one thing, that $7 million number. They're not telling us what the safe withdrawal rate is. And of course, they're assuming that we're only making 3% per year, so we're super limited on our accumulation phase here. But if we read more, maybe it'll reveal all the secrets to us. So in the first big paragraph, they say, we've set everything up based on those numbers that you put in. The default life expectancy of 85, the default return of 3%, the annual inflation rate based on what they've chosen already. Okay, that's all fine and dandy. Then they define what all these terms are, but they fail to tell us any of the methodology behind it. They don't say what you'll need is calculated based on your post-retirement expenses using these numbers or using this thought process. And frankly, that information not being here makes it yet another deal breaker for me. I want to see the methodology behind this. How the heck do you come up with $7 million? They're going to force me to break out a spreadsheet, aren't they? It's spreadsheet time.
A few moments later.
All right, I just made a quick spreadsheet on the phone so we could talk through this together and try and unpack what Webull's doing here because they're not telling us. So based on what the calculator has given us so far, the total amount that it's claiming that we need to support ourselves on a $10,000 per month kind of income in retirement is just over $7 million. So that's our starting line there. And then I've had to figure out the future monthly spend number myself based on the inflation figure they gave us. Do you remember the inflation figure was 3.4%? And so I started with $10,000 per month now, and I multiplied that by 3.4% per year for basically 13 years, which was the timeline that we gave it as far as how much longer I wanted to work before I retired, and I got $15,444 per month as our monthly spend. So what they're saying is everything's going to get more expensive by a rate of 3.4% per year for the next 13 years. For me to have $10,000 in spending power today, the equivalent of that in 13 years will be $15,444. So that's a dollar figure we need to plan for there. And if we take that number, multiply it by 12 to get the Webull yearly spend, we get $185,000 that we need to plan on spending in the future if we want to have $10,000 per month in spending power. And then the final number that I really wanted to know here, drumroll please, is Webull's safe withdrawal rate. I want to know what they're factoring in as far as a safe amount that we can withdraw, because right away, that $7 million number feels really high to me, which tells me that their safe withdrawal rate number has got to be really, really small. And it is 2.64% as a safe withdrawal rate. That is obscenely low. That's a ridiculously safe withdrawal rate. If you put a safe withdrawal rate that low into a Monte Carlo simulator and you back tested basically all the years the stock market has ever been in history, I'll bet you it would be safe 100% of the time. This is absurdly safe. Based on the estimates that I've done, this is way safer than it needs to be, because in my mind, a 3% safe withdrawal rate is probably still too safe. Even something like a 3.5% is pretty conservative when it comes down to things, because the standard safe withdrawal rate that people kind of quote all the time, it was the result of the Trinity study back in the day, is a 4% safe withdrawal rate.
All right, future Brendan here with a little bit of an update to this, because one thing I noticed while I was editing this video is I didn't factor in taxes. Webull doesn't really say clearly whether they do or not, but for us to try and be as accurate as possible when we're analyzing this, let's go ahead and factor in some kind of tax rate, just because that's more accurate and that's more realistic. Based on the projections I've done, I think our tax rates should be lower in the future whenever we're retiring, because we're going to have things like long-term capital gains paying our bills instead of W-2 income. But for this exercise, let's go with 20% taxes, because it's kind of a nice middle ground. It's not too conservative, not too aggressive. Let's try and factor in what Webull might have been thinking with such a high retirement number that they're giving us here. So if we take my $15,000 per month in future income and we add 20% for taxes onto that, we're talking about $18,500 per month. This is getting a big number here. And yearly extrapolated that out, that's $222,000. So their $7 million number is making a little bit more sense here. And then if we recalculate the safe withdrawal rate with the inclusion of that tax number kind of factored in, we've brought it to a slightly more reasonable 3.16% safe withdrawal rate. I still think this is super conservative, or they're factoring in huge tax numbers, or they have another motive, but let's get back to the main video.
And so in essence, what Webull is telling us with this plan is that they want us to be so incredibly safe and withdraw such a tiny, tiny piece of our overall portfolio that for us to have that much money to spend, we've got to have an absolutely massive portfolio. I think there could be two reasons for this, one of them being fairly innocent, one of them being fairly sinister on the part of Webull. Sinister. Maybe it's more greedy than it is sinister. The first reason they could give us such a crazy low safe withdrawal rate is they just want to be really kind of safe in their projections. They're only planning on us making 3% per year in terms of our return. That's very safe. It's very conservative. They don't want to overpromise anything and get in trouble in the meantime. So in a similar vein, maybe they want to be really safe in terms of our safe withdrawal rate. They want you to save, if anything, too much money, because they don't want somebody to retire based on their advice and say, hey guys, I ran out of money and I followed your plan exactly. Now I'm mad at you. Now I'm going to kind of smear you in the press because you've led me astray. They don't want to be accountable for bad investing advice, so they're leaning way on the side of safety. I could see that. That seems pretty logical. But the other motive here, the one that might be a whole lot more greedy and much more self-serving in terms of Webull making more money and not actually helping us, is that if they give us a tiny little safe withdrawal rate and we dutifully follow the advice they've given us, what that means is we have to save and invest a lot more money with Webull. We've got to just contribute absolute crazy amounts into Webull, which makes Webull more money. And so maybe this way Webull can say, look, we're just trying to be conservative and safe. And in reality, that conservative, safe mindset makes them twice as much money as it would otherwise. So then if we hit let's do this and we just keep going with this retirement plan just to confirm our suspicions here, of course, the only next steps they give us are an option to open an IRA with Webull. They don't give us that option like I was talking about, where they should really promote both their taxable side and their IRA side to give us a total plan. And so overall, this tool, this plan setup that Webull has given us that should be incredibly powerful, and it started off on such the right foot when it came down to integrating everything for us and giving you a really clear idea of what you need to do, what role you play in this. Okay, you want to have this amount of money in this time, here's what you've got to do. And they gave us those 3 options really nicely to extend the plan or to save more or to lower the goal down. All that is super nice and it makes total sense and it's very helpful. But whenever they don't complete the thinking there and give us more control over the investments, tie that into their Robo advisor and say, okay, you want a big return? Well, that means you've got to take big risks. So here's how we're going to invest for you. Is that okay? That makes all the sense in the world. Just give me that option. Otherwise, if you say, no, my risk level is lower, then they can revert that back into the plan and change your goal too and say, that's fine. But just so you know, you've got to expect a lower return now. Now you've got to expect a 2 to 5% return, which extends out your goal, or you've got to contribute more or whatever. You see how that loop happens, how it's all connected together. They're failing to do that. And then it's a massive letdown in retirement because they're taking all these decisions out of your hands. They're making kind of goofy decisions for you and not giving you the control or the transparency to see how those decisions are being made. And so I'm all hot and bothered now to say, this is a big letdown. My expectations have been let down by this service because it should be a lot better. It can be a lot better. All that to say, thankfully, this is just the very first version of this. I think these are easy changes to make. I think as long as Webull doesn't get themselves in any kind of trouble by promising higher returns or integrating all of this into their kind of Robo advisor service, maybe there's hoops there that I don't know that have to be jumped. Maybe there's rules there that they don't want to cross. I don't know how all that back end stuff works together and how regulators would view that. But to me, that would make it a very complete tool. That would make it something that you can jump in here, say, I want to achieve this goal, and then they essentially hold your hand throughout that whole process and figure out how to do that with you, from your investments to the account type, to the timeline, to how much you have to have saved. All of that could be kind of in-house, in-app managed by them. And that would be really cool. I don't even mind that they would be opening maybe a couple of accounts for you. I don't mind that it would all be kind of suggesting other Webull products for you, because what do you expect? It's all within Webull. That's what they should be doing. But for me, the value proposition isn't here yet on this. They need to make those changes. They need to make it more of a complete service that takes you from soup to nuts with your goal, that takes you from not having a race car to having a race car and celebrating that milestone whenever you get there. Maybe for a simpler goal like saving for emergencies, it's not a big deal because you're probably saving that in cash anyway. So not having that kind of control over your returns and how the money is saved maybe doesn't matter. But any bigger goal or something that's long-term and more complex, like saving for retirement, it's just not there. The service isn't ready yet. I'm happy to see the creative effort being made. I'm happy to see the steps being going in the right direction, because I think if those things were fixed, this would be a really fantastic product and it could keep Webull ahead of the competition in some ways. I don't see a feature like this that builds in all those different integrations in the way that this does in other investing services. They might have buckets, they might have ways you can name kind of chunks of your savings account different ways, and they might have some kind of retirement calculator or some little suggestions here and there, but the possibility of this being all integrated and kind of sewn together into one piece for you, one retirement plan, one-stop shop, it handles everything for you. Dude, the potential there is huge for them. It's really, really cool what they've done. And so if they fix those things, Webull is going to go up a few rankings on my list of best investing apps. But for now, they kind of stay where they are. Sort of a half-baked effort. I'm curious to know what you think of the Webull plans. If you don't really like them and you don't want to leave a comment, then comment with an emoji of an axe, like you're going to chop the plan. Not a big fan of it. If you like it, you can leave me a comment and explain exactly why. And otherwise, the secret comment for today is deer, because there are some deer right outside my window right now, and they are just chilling, sitting in the shade, having the best time. There's deer right outside my window. Look at this. Oh, deer. Now, in case you missed it, here's the Webull Lite video. That's kind of a first look that I did a couple days ago, so you can take a look at that and see the simplified UI that Webull has made. It's really cool. You can switch back and forth right between traditional Webull and new Webull Lite. I think it's executed really, really well, and Webull's on the right track with a lot of these design changes. They're doing big things. They just have to kind of complete the thinking to make it a really worthwhile product. All right, thanks for watching. See you guys tomorrow. Bye.